welcome to the Week in Advance. How you doing tonight, Christopher?
I am doing fabulous. It has been a very interesting cycle here. We had 50-degree weather last, what was it, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday. We got slammed with snow on Wednesday. The snow has thawed today, and tomorrow we're back up to 50 degrees. So uh, it's interesting how the weather is making that last little innuendo toward winter as we're advancing more and more into spring. The days are lengthening, which is an exciting experience for those of us who've been snowbound for the entire winter. How are things there in Los Angeles?
Well, we really enjoy the longer days because our sun is out longer. It's been pretty epic. It's been 70s, 75, 80. The beach is just killer. People are getting ready for the beach vibe, and especially just here in Hollywood, it's creating some amazing sunsets around 7 o'clock at night now, which just makes for a lot of happiness. You see a lot more smiles on people's faces. You just the California vibe is back again. Whenever the longer days are around, so it feels really nice.
That's lovely. Well, we are entering into this coming weekend with that blossoming of the full moon in Virgo. So my first instinct is to say a lot of people are going to be spending a lot of time dusting and cleaning corners in their house because Virgo is the one sign that loves order and above everything else. And I think that Virgo energy is going to manifest in a lot of people's lives in a way of creating a new sense of order and getting all the rubble from the last 6 months sorted out so that we can really get a clear sense of what we're going to be preparing for as we advance towards spring, because we do have the equinox coming up in addition to this full moon. So very powerful times coming up, starting right off the bat here on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, we are really stepping into a powerful full moon. This is funny that you bring up just this energy of Virgo, how it can be like OCD, or in many ways, I look at Virgo as the reality. It is the physical manifestation of reality about every little nook and corner. And it is another mutable sign. So mutable earth energy, this is definitely us cultivating in the change and what can we do with this change. I think that this last 26 days of being in Pisces has been a lot about change and, stepping into these mystical realms, these dream realms. You and I were just talking about Neptune and how it's been here in Pisces, and how it just is so powerful, how just 1 minute you're just cruising along and the next minute there's just this fog or this incredible, powerful, spiritual, yet sometimes confusing feeling that can take over our lives. And it's thick, but it's subtle, and it doesn't, hurt us or create such, maybe edge as other signs or planets. And this full moon in Virgo is trying to pull us out of that. The moon is pulling on this energy and pulling more back into the mind, pulling back into physical, pulling back into trying to find that cleanliness or clarity in many ways.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That activity of that polarization between the sun moon really does bring kind of an extreme awareness as to, once again, the subject duality, because we do have a life that is manifest in a spiritual realm that is completely in a disconnect from this physical realm. And of course, our physical life is something that we have to be very focused on, simply because if you don't pay the rent, you're out. So we get a lot of that realization as we see this passage in usually the month of March, where that polarity expands our sensitivity to the fact that we're living in two different realms, and we need to put an equal amount of attention, I think, on both realms. the people who are not responding to the spiritual urges, spiritual voice, that call to awakening, then they get trapped in the Virgo side of things, and they're kind of like Dorothy, I mean Alice, when she went down the rabbit hole and found, this very chaotic, disorienting realm that she was living in, where everything was very visceral and at the same time quite mad. So it seems that our spirituality brings us out of that depth of madness that we can experience when we become too obsessed with the physical realm.
Oh, so you're talking about the Virgo hangover, which is, the reality of drinking too much at night, or, that Pisces energy of getting too lost. And then there's that physical body reaction of Virgo, that's why I call it the Virgo hangover, because the Virgo is what brings the hangover, not the Pisces of the escaping, not the excitement of taking out of this world, right? When you go off this planet, or when you come onto a drug, or when you take off in the spiritual world. And I think that you're right. People come into reality checks this weekend, because we can wake up very clear this weekend, like whatever's right in front of you is definitely, I would say, the universe trying to wake you up to something. Like, it's just like, pay attention to this. This could be part of your life. This could be part of your reality. And especially pay attention to relationship energy around this weekend, because Venus is in one of the weirdest positions she can be. No planets are touching her or messing with her, or much of really anything. So, Venus is in this all alone place in Aquarius with this excitement and this pizzazz, right? This like electricity coming back and coming off a retrograde and all this energy. And she's kind of out there alone, allowed to dance. And I think with this full moon in Virgo, this Pisces energy, I think that we're reality checking some powerful new and exciting kind of relationships. And this is also the ending of a long Mercury transit, which has been happening in Aquarius. And this will be the last weekend of Mercury in Aquarius before this week we have it jump into Pisces.
Yes, and finally is restored from moving out of its shadow. And then, of course, as soon as it hits that 5-degree Pisces mark, it will nail Neptune. And once again, I think dialogue will go back to source. I think a lot of people will be talking about, or thinking about, their spiritual identity. Who am I? Where am I going? What is the meaning of all this? Because Mercury loves to discover the inner workings of things. So it is going to be an interesting week as we begin to set these forces into motion. We first have this blossoming effect of the full moon, and we've got this advance now as Jupiter has gone direct, and it is in fact in square to Uranus, which is really accelerating forward now in Aries. So there's an edge going on there. I see this missing airplane, a sudden unexpected event that seemed very in correlation to that advance of Jupiter. Jupiter turns direct. Its full energy begins to be exerted in that square to Uranus, and the unexpected happens. So, and then of course we've got that Neptunian effect going on with Mercury. So it is an interesting and kind of bizarre kind of energy, because I think everybody's feeling a little bit like they're out in the swamp and the fog is really too heavy to figure out what your bearings are.
Yeah, this is what dream world's like. When you have a dream, and 1 minute you're so confident in where the dream's going, and that next second it just is, wow, the plane just fell out of the sky and we don't know where it is. It's just like, and I think that's how heavy this Pisces energy is. I mean, Chiron's here too. So I think part of this fog that we talk about, this confusion, sometimes also the more higher vibration though of connecting higher, there's a big spiritual lesson in healing us that we have to all go through this energy of learning to just surrender to the energy, learning to just, go with this flow, and see where it takes us, see where it all goes. I mean, we all don't know what will happen about this plane yet. So we all can't make too many assumptions yet. This is a Mercury, which I love how you just brought up the plane, because we were talking about this. Mercury is not out of its full shadow period yet, you know? I mean, so this is a good way to see whenever you have Mercury come on Neptune and go retrograde. I mean, it is seeding this very confusing world, but for some way, it's all going to work out. Like, it's all going to show up, and the riverbank is going to bring us into the place we need to go. It's a very weird energy, but for some reason, there's some sort of healing happening, and it can feel like we're all just dead asleep. And we get these little moments where we wake up in the middle of the night, like, what happened? And when you're just dazed and confused, and then, oh, the plane went down, okay, and then falling back asleep. I think everybody's kind of just like, it's there, but it's not there either, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is that obscurification kind of energy that Neptune does like to generate, because it causes you to really question what your reality is all about and how meaningful your reality is to the bigger picture of the true reality of the combined consciousness, of the bigger element here of we as a collective consciousness and what our vision and our destiny is focused on. So once again, we're getting a little kind of a message, I think, with the loss of a plane, the loss of a group of people, the loss of a part of our own consciousness, not knowing where it's gone. I mean, how much of an allegory is that about perhaps the personal experience that we're all having in our, in our little world here? Are we completely tuned in to all the higher and lower vibrations that are going on in the world around us? The other thing that was interesting in the news this week was this massive explosion in New York that, the gas pipeline leakage and subsequent, a couple of buildings going up and fairly high number of casualties in that too. And I see this sudden eruptive energy once again being tagged in ultimately to Uranus and its activity, because it is a very volatile planet. Jupiter is taking that volatility and expanding it. So I think that there is a certain potential as we advance now through the full moon weekend and then all of next week, as we're seeing this letting off steam kind of energy, where the full moon is finally acting as a kind of a counterpoint and giving us a sense of allowance for the unexpected to fully manifest in order for us to get past it, get over it, and move on with our lives. So it's very synergetic. You're seeing a lot of not one planet's influence, but a synthesis of, how all of these planets are very interactive. I think that's really a big part of what we should be conscious of as we're observing that heavenly dance right now, is that these planets are all exerting influence one upon the other, and it's coming through very clearly for us now. We can really see what the distinctions are in the different types of energy.
Yeah, this is bringing us, I like how you bring up how, I mean, it's bringing us allowance. I think it's also bringing us an alignment to structure our lives, kind of, because this Virgo energy does a really good job of putting things back into order. And I think in our lives, things could be a little bit slippery when wet at this kind of zone, which finally this is kind of a little bit of a cleanup on aisle 3, where we're not slipping so much, where we can finally kind of get some sort of grip on our reality again, because Saturn and Mars went retrograde the same weekend at pretty much the beginning of this month here. And these two planets are finally almost at their moving positions, but still not really. So this is extra slippery when we're kind of stopped, and we're stopped in the mud, or we're stopped in the fog, and we could get real caught up in this really big energy, and it could get real just weird, right? So this is us finally, I think, being able to get some grips in our life again. Although this isn't aggressive kind of grip, like getting your hand on the wheel and throwing down the gas and pulling yourself out of the mud. This is just kind of like a root kind of falling into place that you could grab onto and kind of slowly pull your way back up into the reality and out of the hole, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very much like quicksand. There are a lot of potholes filled with quicksand that we're having to negotiate. We're having, more importantly, to identify what it is that has caused us to create these circumstances. Because once again, you know, the really deeper lesson of Neptune in all of its motions completely around the wheel is that it is trying to force us to see through the illusions we have created about ourselves and about our own minds. And if we are, in fact, the expression of divinity, and God is, in fact, perfect, then we would have to be perfect in theory. But how many of us are actually experiencing even the beginnings of an awakening to our inner perfection, our inherent beauty, our inherent creativity? All of these things are definitely bubbling up to the surface now, as once again Neptune is influencing this overall spread of the planets, and it's causing us to have to really contemplate what it is that we have created with our lives, and how much we have disempowered ourselves in different situations and different associations. So this is a very profound period of spiritual insight. And again, as Mercury is moving out of Aquarius and into Pisces, we're going to get the messages much more clearly over the next few weeks. And the important thing is to stay in a state of receptivity so that you can find out from that inner dialogue with your own higher consciousness exactly what it is that you need to address in your own day-to-day existence, and re-empower yourselves, re-identify yourself with the divine.
Yeah, and this is going to be one of those two-part weeks where I think we've covered the weekend and the beginning of the week well, because you know this is that Pisces realm that we're talking about. It is a full moon we talked about, and then here is this big change up this week. Mercury comes into Pisces and it will try to finally get out of its shadow period. So if we were to make predictions, I think that maybe we start to get closer and closer this week to the plane, and most of our lives get closer to an understanding in what in the hell just happened in the last, month and a half. Because this could be like us starting to awaken finally this week, as slowly we're coming out of a slumber, and then pow, Thursday-ish, we're going to have the sun come into Aries, which is, this is going to be the big spring, equinox on the other side of the planet. It's coming into fall. This is the equal day, equal night. This is also, in my opinion, the new year. I definitely, as an astrologer, really appreciate the pagan new year. I think it's a beautiful thing. And before that happens, though, the moon will be in Libra, and it will come into the middle of this cardinal cross that's starting to form. It will hump over Mars retrograde. And I think there's some really interesting energies here for us to tap into about maybe figuring out what this Mars retrograde is about, maybe understanding. I think midweek, the universe might highlight a reoccurring event or kind of feeling that we're going to be dealing with here for the next 3 months of this retrograde. I think the moon finally is going to touch Mars retrograde for the first time since it's happened. And I think there's definitely something there, and it's triggered right when the sun is exiting out of Pisces. So there's this last moment of I think, internal knowing of maybe what we need to rearrange our troops or our actions with, and then boom, we come to the end of this week with the sun in Pisces, a moon in the sun in Aries, and a moon in Scorpio, which adds to the intensity, and Mercury coming out of its shadow period. This can really be a weekend that we just kind of a week that we jump into a whole like other energy and kind of wake up pretty powerfully.
That is absolutely right on. And the other thing that I'm observing here as I'm looking at the activity of the moon as it moves into Scorpio out of Libra, and it will, have a little momentary dalliance there with Mars. But more importantly, we've got the nodes that have been offline because they're at 0 degrees now. And so we're going to see the moon interact with both the north and south node in Taurus and Scorpio. And that, I think, has a lot of imagery around it of, the casting off of winter, the casting off of the blanket of snow. And I think that there is going to be a very sudden awareness that spring has finally arrived. I think that this is going to be one of those instances where we see flowers blooming next to, 2-foot-high snowbanks. And I think a lot of people, because the node activity is related to past and future karma, I think that we'll see a lot of people looking inside and wondering what is the meaning of circumstances, events that they have experienced in their lives. And that node being at 0 degrees, it's almost like they're not letting the information loose yet. It's going to be a couple more weeks. You're going to get fully into spring before you really get the final comprehension of the nodal activity and of your own personal journey as you've been going through space and time and creating what effectively is karma. Every action has a counterpoint. It has a reaction, and the nodes give us a barometer as to what past reactions were and past actions were, and how we can expect these new cycles to blossom up like flowers in spring.
I think it's a beautiful notion how the nodes finally officially click into gear at the end of this week into this Libra Aries. The same time the sun comes into Aries and lights up the new beginning. Really, I mean, this is a powerful wake up by the end of this week. And even though we don't kind of extend to the next weekend, that next weekend is definitely a big new surge of life. And although Mercury will be trailing in Pisces, which is interesting, and to see also Venus trailing. If you go back to this time last year, we had the sun in Aries, we had Mars that came into Aries, we had Uranus that was in Aries, we had Mercury that was triumphing forward, we had Venus that was triumphing forward. This is all trying to catch up now, the show. So this new beginning of this energy is definitely not maybe as so wham as it was last year, as we all were taking new directions and we were all going. This is kind of a slower go new beginning, but there's definitely a kicking into gear here that I think will take place, because Saturn will also leave its stationary position. Mars is out of its stationary position, and things really, I think, are ready to move forward. And we've been talking about the node shifting for 3 weeks now, because the true node, which is a true calculation of the math, if you want to get like a very deep Virgo scientist of really looking at microscopically these node shifting. But now that the average mean, or the node that the ancients used to calculate off of, moves out of Scorpio and into Libra by the end of this week, we're officially in. And this really, I think, is a huge kicker towards a world to find this inner balance. Can it find inner peace? I mean, Mars in Libra, North Node in Libra are all about inner peace and relationships, cooperation. And I think that there's a lot of this having to be forced on the planet, whether it's Russia and Ukraine, or it could go up into even more extensive areas. And I think we're going to see a lot of that as April is the month of the big cardinal cross. And it's going to be also a powerful time where we're getting closer to eclipse season, because now the sun is getting closer to the node, the south node. So, this is a very quiet period, but we are getting ready to jump back up into a very active period. And I think the very beginnings of that active period just only start to begin here at the end of this week.
Exactly. The other thing that we're observing is, Pluto has been moving forward kind of in its own pace, doing its own thing, while Uranus was retrograde and Jupiter was retrograde. And now we've got Jupiter and Uranus online, and they're going to start catching up. So we're going to see that growing essence of that cardinal cross you were speaking of begin, I do believe, with this full moon. We're going to see that continuance of a somewhat volatile energy, somewhat stressful, chaotic, coming to the crossroads. Are you ready to make, your commitment to whatever it is as far as the next stage of your life is all about? So again, a lot of build-up energy over the next 3 weeks, but especially I think we're going to become very sensitive to it this week because this full moon is going to kind of blossom into that kind of an energy zone. So very, very interesting times ahead. It's going to be a week that I do believe is going to have some surprises for us, as well as a huge amount of new potential for us to work with. Because again, when you have these heavy planets interacting in the way that they are, it's not only your personal life that is being affected, but it's your societal life, it's your stand within community. So communities are going to be going through forced shifts where they have to acknowledge whatever it is that they have been failing to address over the last 5, 10, 15 years. So yeah, we are in a very key period of transformation and kind of a beginning of a sense of perhaps we are getting closer and closer to the Aquarian vision.
Yeah, this is definitely, I think you're right with surprises. They might be subtle surprises, though, that are very personal to us. And maybe that there's new access to a new reality that maybe we weren't aware of yet or awake to yet, I think is the better word, because this is dealing with this higher conscious realms that I think our awareness really starts to come online more this week and awaken out of a slumber. And the moon is going to travel through Virgo, Libra, Scorpio. This is dealing with reality. This is dealing with finding balance and then intensity. And I think that we end things on a more intense level. I think we start things, like we said, in this more kind of inner peace, realigning our life. And I think this is still it's a beautiful week for a lot of people, but it's definitely one that's, I think, more subtle than usual. So it's kind of another week of you know, preparation as we're kind of in the middle of trains changing tracks a little bit. I think it's definitely, though, we are all ending up on the right track, the green light turning on, and we're going to really engage into some really powerful places. So I'd love to see where the cards go.
Yes, well, you know what Warren Zevon was talking about there, nighttime and switching yard, and that's kind of the train that we're all on. Now, we start off the week, interestingly enough, with the Four of Pentacles for the weekend. And this is an interesting card in this initial, launch into the weekend. I think people are going to really not be feeling like doing a lot of partying and socializing. I think they're going to be more focused on their nest, more withdrawn, pulling the energy into themselves and taking care of things that have been on the agenda for a long time. Interestingly, we go in a natural progression from the Four of Coins, Four of Pentacles, to the Five of Coins. And this particular card is addressing that idea of abandonment. You know, have we abandoned ourselves? And I see that as a very Virgo energy. I think that Virgo people have that challenge most of their lives. They have to stop and look at being true to themselves and getting out of that Virgo energy field of service to others at all costs, because Virgos can really become martyrs if they're not careful. And I think we're going to see that vibration with this full moon over the next few days, where we're asking ourselves, do I love myself enough? I mean, that's really the central question, is if you love yourself enough to recognize yourself within and yourself within others, what happens? All of a sudden the love expands and grows, and you're able to love yourself and your neighbors as yourself. And that's really the ideal we're hoping to attain. So by the end of the weekend, pardon me, we do have the big payoff, the Ace of Pentacles. So it really is an earthy passage through this full moon weekend. But as we move into Libra, as the moon transits into Libra, we're going to recognize the values that we have gained in our growth over the years. We're going to really come to a new level of self-appreciation. You know, the pentacle, that big coin that has this tremendous amount of value, is the gift that will be available to us during this weekend transit if we are holding up for it. The next card up, as we move into the week, we'll find that we're giving up our attachment to a number of things that have perhaps been holding us in the past. So this full moon will have that effect of being a release mechanism, and we'll be able to let go of the old spilled wine and the old cups that have gone sour and move off on a new journey, move off on a new adventure, giving ourselves a new vision of what the potential is for the future. This coming week, we'll have a few minor things that come up, but it's not a hugely challenging week. You know, you're going to be kind of on top of the game. You're going to have all of the resources necessary to manage whatever it is that arises. So I think the word I would associate with this card is confidence. So our building confidence during the week as we have gained this personal insight, gained this valuable sense of self-awareness. And by the time we get toward the end of the coming week, as spring arrives, we look at this. The Queen of Rods, the Queen of Fire, the energy of the sun. And this, of course, is Aries time. So vitality. I always read that card as one of the strongest life force cards in the deck. So vitality, life force, that explosion into spring, that final release from the chill of winter, and all of a sudden we're wanting to go running through the fields and scattering seeds and communing with nature in a big way. So very powerful week, but it's very much a personal week, I think, in a lot of ways.
I love how there's so many coins to start this off with, and I think that goes so well with all the Virgo energy and the enrichedness, and especially that Four of Pentacles, how we can, you know, like you say, hold on to the energy. This could also be greed too, like we want to have something go a certain way, which can kind of go with Virgo, right? Virgo wants to control like the situations and clean it all a certain way. So watch that, I think, this weekend. And then as we kind of progress, I love how the Five of Pentacles come up, that abandonment, or maybe even sometimes feeling left out. You know, it's like that feeling of being left out. Maybe you've put yourself in a position where you're feeling left out because maybe, I don't know, maybe you're not becoming very aware, or that Venus in Aquarius energy. Maybe you need to maybe not turn your back, but connect. I think that goes with the Venus in Aquarius very well. I love the cards that was pulled. That Ace of Pentacles is really a new opportunities for a new reality, I think. And then there's so much detachments that you brought up, and so many things we can let go of to move forward with, and especially from the past. But I love how you picked up all the rods there at the end, which is definitely the fire lighting back up. We do have the upper hand. Might be a little tricky, but the second that sun comes into Aries, boom, dude, I think it's going to be powerful. And the Queen of Rods is one of my favorite too. She definitely would be my wife, and plus she has a nice little kitty cat always at her feet, which is kind of nice.
Yes, and she likes to stir the pot and bring things to the surface. You know, the Aries energy does like simplicity. There's an innocence within Aries that I find very charming. So we're going to see that innocence kind of sprinkled around the world, I think, as we move into Aries time this year. There's going to be a little craziness, you know, when the sun glides over Uranus, but nonetheless, I think that spring this year is going to be filled with cherry blossoms and apple blossoms and peach blossoms, and there's going to be a real sense of commune within the realm of nature. Nature will embrace us, I think, in a very good way. So we have got a fantastic week coming up.
Yeah, and I really look forward to seeing where this new year will take us with this new transition of the sun into, the beginning, the new beginning, a new time, a new day for us all, and I'm really excited for it. I'm anxious for it. I'm really anxious, and I'm anxious to see, if there would be any time, I'd predict that maybe we do find the plane. It could be near the end of this week that we could get news real quick. Mercury coming into Pisces, and then Friday, Saturday, boom. It could be just crazy like that. It's just things really, I think, will get a grip pretty quick here back, and we'll feel like we're embedded back in the reality. Maybe we're back in the matrix again. But I definitely think with Mars still retrograde and Saturn retrograde, this isn't so powerfully fast moving. So
Well, and you're kind of kick-starting the whole adventure by heading off to the desert. Is that correct? You're getting ready to get the hell out of LA and go spend your time in the wilderness in the desert.
I will. I'll be in the desert this weekend, and then I'll be in the desert next weekend too. So and then I was in Sedona last weekend in the desert. So this will be 3 weekends in the desert for me. So
Yes. Well, then we're moving into that fiery Aries time, and next thing you know, you'll be running for cover.
yeah, I think we're all you got to see a lot with this Aries energy, especially because we're getting ready for eclipse season, and it's just we the universe gave us a nice break. I hope everybody's ready because break time's almost over here.
Very true.
So
Well, David, it was really a pleasure once again having a chat with you. I think we've got some exciting times ahead, and I think the real challenge right now for us is to have the courage to step into the future.
yes, it is, and no fear. Let go of the fear. Uh, you don't have to be there in that.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Christopher. I will talk to you next week.
Yes, and have great fun out there running around in the cacti and bramble bushes.
Definitely will. See you later.
Take care.
Bye.